Hi everybody, this is Mr. RB. I'm going to show you how to make the letter X look like a three-dimensional form on a flat piece of paper. To begin, we're going to create a horizon line, and I'm placing mine high up on the page today. The horizon line will be horizontal, going from side to side. Above this, anything up there we're looking up at, such as the bottom of a plane flying overhead, or the underneath side of clouds, or ceilings. Anything below there we tend to be looking down on, such as the top of a small table when we're standing in a room. I need to add a vanishing point, and I'm going to put mine all the way over on the left today. It must be on the horizon line, but I'm choosing to put it over on the far left side today. To create my X, I'm going to start by making, there's a lot of ways to do this. I'm going to start by making a V on its side and another V on its side. I'll make these fairly symmetrical. I'm going to connect, oops, I need to make that one a little longer, connect the feet a little bit. Maybe you see where I'm going here. Then I'm going to connect the tops a little bit. Notice I go horizontally in, and I'm going horizontally in. All I have left to do is add a V on the top and an upside down V on the bottom. On this form, I actually did not use my straight edge that much. You can see that the top lines where I did are definitely straighter and smoother. I have to say, I find that if I want really straight lines, using a straight edge helps. I don't always need or even want that. Sometimes I want a more sort of hand-drawn look. I did stick to a pretty straightforward angular shape for my X today, and that was largely to make drawing the perspective lines clearer and easier to understand. I'm going to connect to corners on the X form. It's very angular, there's no curves, so I just need to figure out which corners to connect to. I know I'll need to connect to the ones closest to the vanishing point, but let's see where those go. I'm going to put my pencil on the vanishing point. I'm going to put my ruler on the pencil. I'm going to pivot until I hit one of those corners of the X, and the first one I hit is this lower left hand leg, and I'm going to connect that up to the vanishing point. I'm going to continue to pivot, 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 pivot. Notice again my pencil is on that vanishing point. Pivot, 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 pivot till I get to another corner, and the next corner I hit is the midpoint on that X over on the left, so I'll connect that up. I've got both those sides, both those corners connected. Now I need to figure out if these two corners are connected by a diagonal, and this one is just a diagonal I created somewhat arbitrarily. I need the line for the back of the X, the back edge, to be parallel, to mimic or go in the same direction. One easy way I found to do that, I'm just going to put my ruler on that line, slide the ruler towards my vanishing point, and then create a new diagonal. Notice these two diagonals are parallel. If you drew them going back, 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 back into infinity, they would never meet. I do need to get rid of all this extra vanishing line. Most of that was just to establish the angles of these two lines here. I needed to get the right angle so that they seemed to be converging as they went back in space. That's important. The fact that that in the real world, it looks like in the real world like things get smaller and closer together as they go back in space. We're using that, mimicking that, and making things get smaller and closer together as they move towards the vanishing point which will give our drawings the illusion of three-dimensional space and form. All right, let's get another line in there. I'm going to put my pencil on the vanishing point, ruler on the pencil. I already got the lower left, mid left. Now I go up and I hit the upper left. I connect, and once again I connect. I have the front connected with this diagonal that I created for myself, and there is a little bit of space showing over here, so I need to connect these two lines, these two vanishing lines, in the same way that the front connects. The front connects with this edge. I'm just going to move this over here until I get to the corner that I created. And I no longer need the rest of that line. Notice this line connecting the front or the bubble letter edge of the upper leg of the X goes the exact same direction and is perfectly parallel with this line, the one we just added. Those two lines are parallel. They connect at the top and the bottom. The top and bottom lines both head towards the vanishing point. And as they do, they are just ever so gradually V-ing together. All right, let's keep going. We got the left-hand side. Next line we come up to, I did hit this corner over here, but when I line that up with my vanishing point, I would have to go through the X. I'm not going to draw any lines through my X today because I'm thinking that my X is made out of concrete, wood, metal, or other things that are not generally transparent. We don't usually see through them. Therefore, any lines that would go through the X will count as not visible, and we're not responsible for them. All right, let's keep going. So I'm skipping this one, this corner. As I go up, what's the next corner I meet? Same thing over here. This line would go through the X, so I'm skipping that. I keep going. There's another one. All those midpoints would just go through. I have three of those. They would go through the X, so I don't draw them in. I'm not going to take that time. I'm going to go up, 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 and the next one I actually hit that I need to draw is the top of that left-hand leg of the X. On the top and the front, it connects with a horizontal line. So when I go back in space, I'm going to line it up here, go back, 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 back towards the vanishing point. And when I get to the first corner, I just drive right across with a horizontal. I think my X is starting to look kind of three-dimensional. At first, it can look like just a strange mess of lines and angles. And then it starts to, something in our brain sort of flips and we start to accept the illusion. All right, let's keep going. I'm going to put my pencil on the vanishing point. I'm going to go up, and I do notice that I hit this lower left leg's corner. So I'm going to go up. It would go all the way through. I could draw all of that in, and I know I'm going to erase anything in the X. I know that it's not that deep. I didn't make my X that deep today. But the question is, where does this line end? How far back does it go until it changes direction and goes up on a diagonal like the front of the X? How far? Well, I want it to match what's there, so I'm just going to line that up with the one I did for earlier for the back line of the upper left quadrant, and I'm just going to see if I can get a good line in there. Not much different from what I drew. It's one of those really slight changes. Technically, I think there's a corner right about there, but it's really difficult to tell that. But I think that's good enough. We're ready to move on. We have just a little bit more to do. I'm going to put my pencil on the vanishing point. I'm going to go up and up and up till I meet a corner I haven't gotten to, and there we go. It's that upper right hand leg. Here's the line that connects the vanishing point. At some point it's going to end and come down in the same way my arbitrary diagonal did. But where? Well, I want it to be about the same depth. So I'm going to try to mimic that. I'm going to say, like, wow, look at this leg over here. Maybe that could just be a continuation, because if we want this to be feel like it's one continual line that gets crisscrossed by the other leg, well, if the front is a continuation, the back would be a continuation. Let's put our pencil there. We'll draw, stop, skip, draw. Ooh, that's the dog barking in the background. Not sure what he's concerned about. Probably not much of anything you or I would be concerned about, but he's doing his best to help out. All right, so there I have some of my lines. I need just a couple more. I'm going to put my pencil back on the vanishing point, ruler on the pencil. I'm going to pivot up, and I get to my last corner of the X that I will need. There's my line going back from that upper right corner of the upper right leg to the vanishing point. I'm guessing you can figure out which is the last line, maybe? We have the front edge of the top of that leg. Where's the back? Easy enough to figure out. Well, for one thing, we can either go with this line and say, oh, it has to connect to that corner, and it does. Or we could say, ooh, let's adjust it so it matches the other leg on the other side. Here's our two choices. 1, 2. I know it has to be horizontal. The question is, do I want this leg to be seen as thick as this leg, or do I want it to seem like a continuation? And I notice that these two lines are getting closer together. Either one will work. It's really just a question of how you want your letters to look, your picture to look, what you want it to be about, what your ideas are, and how do I put this? What do you like? What are your ideas? What do you want this particular drawing to be like? I went with skinnier because I kind of like how this leg seems to go up and up, and then it gets skinnier as it goes in. And then this one I let be thicker and deeper. Fair enough. I'm going to add a little bit of tone to enhance the illusion. I'm going to put some tone on the side. And I'm going to think that the sun is up in the sky way over here on the right, shining so bright. And because it's up there, it's going to shine down on the tops or the roofs of those two legs. It's going to leave a fair bit of shadow on the side because that faces away from the sun. I'm going to get a little bit of smearing in there just to smooth that out. I like to use the side of the pencil like this rather than the point when I'm drawing in the shadows often, because it's easier to smear and then also easier to erase to get rid of bits I don't want. When I use the side of the pencil, it doesn't dig into the paper, and so it's easier to move it around and easier to just plain remove it. On this side, I'm using a bit of the point because it's a very small area, and I know I want a really dark tone. Why? It's away from the sun. Here's the sun. This is the other side. The sun is up. This faces down. I'm thinking that would be very deeply shaded. I like having some really dark areas in my drawing. They'll make the lights seem even brighter, and they'll give contrast. Without contrast, drawings and pictures and sculptures even have a tendency to get a bit dull. So if your picture, you've worked really hard and there's so many wonderful details and there's so much going on, but somehow it still feels a little dull, check first, do you have a range from really light to really dark? And if not, you may need to erase in, get in a bit of light, or draw in a little extra dark. One thing I will note, I want to get these to seem bright and light. I can't get them any whiter or brighter than the white of the paper I started with. So if I want these to seem really bright, here's the trick I'm going to use. I'm going to add a little bit of tone very lightly. I'm using the side of my pencil here. Just getting a little haze of gray, and I'm going to rub that around. I want to get rid of the marks so you don't notice them, and I'd like you to not even notice where the gray begins without necessarily having to go to the very edge of the paper, although I could. So I'm just getting a soft gray haze everywhere. Once I get that soft gray haze, I'm going to erase back into those roofs and get a crisp white. I want to get that back to the lighter color of the paper itself. Because I now have that gray, different grays surrounding those white patches, the light tone seems brighter and whiter than it did when it just had more white around it. A little contrast really helps our drawings. The darks make the whites seem whiter, the whites make the darks seem darker, and then the grays can fill in the midtones and give us a rich range of color or value. One last thing, to enhance the illusion of 3 dimensions, I'm going to give a little bit of shadow on the ground. We did not discuss today how to use perspective to figure out how long and in what direction shadows go, which we can do, but that is definitely subject for another day. Here's just a little puddle of shadow. Notice I'm using the side of my pencil and I'm creating sort of an oval shape around the base. I'm going to go from just that inner back edge over here of that X, back edge of the back corner of that one, and I'm going to come sort of down and away from the sun because I know that light generally travels in a straight line. There are some physics we could discuss about what would have to happen to make light bend. But we'll just say that light generally travels in a straight line in our world. There we go. We've got a little, I can get some stronger whites back there. And I've got my X marks the spot. Ooh, that sounds like the start of a story. Well, I hope you enjoy, and feel free to combine the X with other letters to create words and statements and get your own ideas across. Have fun, choose kindness, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.